Welcome to a creative affair. And today, having a general catch up, aren't we, Brie? And uh, rather than launch into a topic in depth, we thought it would be so lovely to share with you what we've been up to lately and some of the things that we've been doing. So, Brie, what have you been up to lately?
So I have been, let's see, what have we been doing? Okay, we'll do a general catch up. And I thought it would be fun to do, I'm the one who brought up this topic, but I thought it might be fun to just kind of talk about where we are creatively and some thoughts that we've had lately about creativity and our own creativity and just some general like meanderings. So stay with us. So I'm on a road trip. I left, I don't know, 6 days ago and drove about, I don't know how many miles, but it's like 25, 30 hours. It's a lot of driving. And it's so because I attended my sister's wedding and then I'm doing some other things here. I'm in like Central California, Central Southern, and then I'm going to go to Northern California for a bit and then back here to my mom's. And then my my mom is 80 and she said she wanted to go camping.
Oh,
So we're
that sounds
uh-huh,
exciting. How lovely to take
right?
her camping.
Yeah, so we're going to go visit a gallery. It's called the new Mount Whitney Gallery. Anyway, it's called the Mount Whitney Gallery. It's run by Joshua Cripps. It's in Lone Pine, California, and there's these really cool like rock formations called the Alabama Hills, and you can just go wild camping there. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do one night wild camping. So
Oh, that
that'll be
sounds
fun.
beautiful. And you're taking your camera, of course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. So I'm hoping to find like a little location where I can leave my mom to hang for a bit and I can go bounce around the rocks and it's desert light. So the desert is interesting. It has this really a lot of surfaces in the desert have this reflective quality and the light just bounces around. I kind of can't describe it, but it lingers. The light lingers, and it has this really beautiful. It's like a magical quality. This desert light, where it feels like it stays light for longer because everything is reflective. A lot of times there's no there are no clouds in the sky, and so when that happens, then everything is just it's just magical, and the landscape kind of turns the color that the sky is because everything is just reflective. It's just it's just so magical. So I stopped in Joshua Tree National Park on the way and did a similar thing where I solo camped alone. There was no one around me, so
Isn't that
and my
beautiful
mom.
thing to do?
Yeah, yeah, my mom made me send her a proof of life photo. Magically, I had a little bit of coverage, cell coverage. It's just, it made me think about this book I've been kind of reading here and there called Everything Beautiful by Ella Francis Sanders. I'm showing you, Lynn. See this? Look how
Oh, okay.
gorgeous
Well,
the
that's a
book is.
gorgeous cover.
Yeah,
I
right?
love the
And
colors on it.
inside is also like gorgeous. And it talks about, I pulled up this quote actually, and this is kind of how I felt in Joshua Tree. Like everything just kind of slowed down while I watched light change. And she says, for one day, do everything just a little bit more slowly than you normally would and noticed what happens to beauty. And I thought, I'm not on my phone. I don't have anywhere I have to be. I just watched kind of minute by minute and paid attention to what was happening around me. I could hear a coyote in the distance. I started seeing that some of the Joshua trees kind of become silhouetted, the stars coming out, the Milky Way. You could see it, it's visible. So I can see the Milky Way visibly and the moon, this bright moon coming up. If you've been out camping or you're enjoying nature, there are things like this that happen that just kind of remind you how beautiful everything around you is.
Mm. It's a special thing. This presence, isn't it? You're really clearly describing being present yeah, with the landscape and with Mother Nature at the time. And it's something that I love to do. And when we're busy, it's really hard to do. I have an incredible piece of bush here in the city that I can go for a walk in, and I try to have my present moment in there. And I'll sit down somewhere beautiful and listen to the lyrebirds singing and the birds squawking. But it is such a different experience when I do it in the wilderness. And it doesn't have to be pure wilderness, but somewhere further away where there isn't the phone and I have longer time. And so I find personally that there's this correlation between how long I actually spend in that environment, the better the connection with it. And I love wild camping, as you call it, and we call it bushwalking here. And I head off at 5 or 10 days with a pack, trekking or hiking or walking. And as I walk along each day, I become more connected with myself and with nature, and the two come hand in hand. And by the end, I'm totally relaxed and a different person. I've become something else, and it's through this act of being more present with myself and present with nature around me. It's an incredibly beautiful thing.
It is. And I love more of being alone and like silent and just listening to my own thoughts. I used to be kind of scared of them. And now because sometimes they're really ugly. And now I'm like, I can separate out like, oh yeah, okay, sometimes that's ugly, but look at this over here. So it's just interesting to get to know myself, having that quiet time. And I suspect that happens to a lot of us when we're in the act of creating, when we're really connecting to whatever our subject is, what we're doing ourselves. There's this thread of like creative energy that like flows between it all, like I'm thinking like this big like infinite connection, like I'm connected to here and that's connected to there and it's all connecting. I think that makes my work stronger when I can have those moments to do that.
Mm. It's a it's really natural, isn't it? And I'm thinking of that word in so many different ways, like nature is as one way of being natural, but it's our place to be in nature. And I think so many of us have forgotten that, and modern society forgets that, and we sort of move on to it to living in cities and in our homes, etc., etc. But this process of reconnecting with it is incredibly grounding, and it's incredibly powerful. And I suspect that because for you and I, Brie, we share Mother Nature as a muse, and she brings us incredible delights in making art with her as a subject. So we have this other relationship with her, other than just bringing us peace. It's an inspiration to bring up creative flow and to get us into the mode. And just listening to you talk about the light, like you obviously were connected enough and present enough to spend all that time noticing that the light's different and that you're in a different environment. And you use the word reflective. The light reflects off all the rocks, and the rocks have their own color. So the two colors of the color of the light and the color of the rocks mix together, and we end up with new colors. We have a beautiful big rock in Australia called Uluru, or used to be called Ayers Rock, and it's a sport to go and watch it change colors at night. And it actually
Really?
goes through all of these. It's a tourist attraction, not a sport, but that's me just being stupid.
Right,
Um,
right. Now
but
I
it,
want to
it
see it.
it changes color as the sun sets and as the sun rises. And it's this mixture of the color of the light and the color of the rock interacting with each other. And you have this incredibly beautiful spectacle. And I can tell you, I was in the north part of South Africa, on the edge of the Namibian border at a place called Kookaboom Cliff with one of my heroes, Freeman Patterson, on one of his trips. And we had one night when a sandstorm came and rain, and it was incredibly hot and quite miserable temperature there. And this dust storm came, and then at sunset, the rocks were a color I've never seen before in my life. And running around photographing and being in this incredibly amazing light. It was, it felt like it was a blessings from the heavens. It was one of those moments when Mother Nature opened up and shared something incredibly different. And every sunset was beautiful there, and every sunrise was beautiful. But there was just this incredibly different moment because of the sand, the dust in the sky that night changed the light to be so different and a glowy, very, very much a glowy, beautiful light.
It's interesting that when we put ourselves in a place, like, you're in South Africa, I'm in, when I go to White Sands, it's almost always different. And I went to Joshua Tree, and we go to these places, and they being able to observe and notice and being present is it creates this inspiration that we can then take with us. I saw this recently, actually, while you were talking about South Africa. I was remembering that um, a newish friend of mine named Candace, she went to Banff National Park, it's up in Canada, and she was posting these. She's never been there before, and she's a painter, and she brought a pad and her watercolors, and she likes to do plein air kind of like watercolor sketchings, and so she can remember and come home and like paint them with her acrylics, and just seeing some of her videos there with this huge smile on her face, enjoying this new experience. It really looked like she has this reinvigoration of creativity because she put herself in this space, like a new place, doing new things with new subjects. And I loved just watching it happen, because it is kind of invigorating. I mean, I guess you could go there and be nervous. You could be worried about what you would create, or am I going to be able to do anything here? What am I going to find? Where should I go? But she just looked like she was just there for all of it. And I think she's really going to create some a beautiful new work. She already is. I'm seeing her. She's creating beautiful new work because she has this new experience to pull from, which I think is so lovely.
Mm. I I'm heading off to a new place next week, Brie. I'm driving down into Victoria and going to the Otways, and it's a place that I've always wanted to spend extra amount of time in. Having driven through it and photographed it briefly on a way to another place because it's very close to the Great Ocean Road, and down on the Great Ocean Road, everyone photographs and goes to see these incredibly interesting rock buttresses that come out, these monoliths that come out of the water. They're called the Seven Apostles, and they're incredibly beautiful. And then right next to that, on this huge peninsula, is this incredibly wet green rainforest. And finally, I found a few people that want to come with me, and we can go and photograph that incredible bit of forest while we're there. And I'm so excited. And hopefully, I'll get some lovely, wet, misty, wet, miserable days that just make me sing photographically and creatively as well.
I hope so too. I'm excited for you. I am going to go to Northern California in a couple of days. And this weekend, we have the Perseid meteor shower. So I'm not a big night sky photographer, but I'm in it for the experience and maybe, try some new things. And so I'll probably meet up with a photographer friend and, and just see. I mean, who knows? It might inspire something. Oh my gosh, Len, I created a new project.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Are
it's
you going to
it's
tell
called
us or not? I've been reading some interesting research about whether telling other people about your plans is actually healthy
Mm.
or not. And there's one side of the coin that says, this is it. The research is actually in business that sharing uh, a plan for a project can actually release endorphins and also dopamine, and you can get such a reward that then you don't even go and do the project, and so that's how you get a negative result, and then sharing it with a mentor or someone that is going to be supportive of it, and that's where the research is for some reason says that actually that's actually a helpful thing to do. And I've personally always found sharing my ideas, it's like a public declaration that I'm gonna do it, and then I become behoven it's no, not behoven, betrothed to the idea that I've told people that I'm actually doing it, and they're like, "Oh, I've told all these people I better get going and actually finish my project that I said I'm actually working on." So, yeah, I find that,
Mm.
it's very, very helpful in my personal belief. So, are you gonna share with us?
Yes, but hang on. First, I wanna make a little announcement
Oh.
because you said that, like, when, you start a project and then you feel, like there's this urge to, because you've shared it, there's this urge to, like, finish, right? You feel betrothed to it. So, I decided to I decided that my 365 project is done. And I really am calling it my daily slice of brie. And so I have about a half a year of daily slice of brie. But, and I listen, I won't forget to tell you about the project. But I think when I started doing it, it was for a really good reason. I wanted to share more. I saw that when I was sharing, I all of a sudden these perfectionist tendencies came up. And so I was able to then tackle some of those, like, for myself. And also in that I allowed myself the I allowed myself to experiment more with my editing and just kind of play around. And now I've done all that. And so and it kind of feels like, not that I didn't really want to finish, but it kind of feels like a burden because I have other things now that I want to share versus the daily 365 stuff, if you know what I mean. Like, I can, like, shelve that and go, that fulfilled its purpose, and now I don't need to do the 365 anymore. Like, I don't feel so compelled to, like, have to do it. It would just be for the going of the motions of it, and that doesn't quite feel right to me.
That's
So,
it's a beautiful, well, a beautiful metaphor for that is that the art's telling you that it's over,
yeah,
and,
like, I had just had
you're
this
like, "Oh,
feeling.
I can't keep doing this. It's not working anymore. This isn't right." You know that even though you set it as a goal, that the goal wasn't right, and you needed to try it. You needed to
Yeah.
spend that time to find something, and then now something else has come on. So, yeah, what's happened? What's rising up in its ashes?
Okay. All right. What is rising up in its ashes? Well, I have some other, like, portfolio things I want to share, like, I want to take my time and work on some things. And I don't want my time to go to working on that project just because it exists. I want my time to go towards this other thing I'm doing. But the project is just one of those. I'm going to link to our episode about projects because you had talked about this, like, grab bag where, you're out and you're like, oh, that can fit into this project. Let me pull something out of my bag, right? And while I was driving, I just started noticing, and truly, I've noticed this for most of my life. It's just now I'm making a new connection, which is really fun. And so I've been noticing that there are just, as I'm driving, that there are just interesting trees along the side of the road, and we just drive right by them, like, oh, there it goes, done. Whereas if we're on a trail or something, we could stop and enjoy and kind of take it in, but when you're driving, it's just a fleeting moment. And I'm like, but I might want to stop and photograph an interesting tree if I can. And so the project is called, tentatively, Roadside Trees. And I mean, duh, but I might call her something different. But for now, it's just called Roadside Trees. And it's no tripod. just handheld and probably only with my infrared because my infrared is my play camera. And so if I can just, even if I like, if someone else is driving, I just go, ooh, 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 slow down. I'm just going to point my camera out the window, you know? And so it's that kind of a thing that if I feel a particular connection, I'm just going to try and make that happen. So, it feels really fun. I don't know what it will turn into. It might take me a few years of collecting things to make it into something, but it sounds really fun. So, because I do road trips, it feels right.
I love
So I
the
have
idea
one.
that I love the idea it's also have a working title, and maybe the title of the finished work might become something else. I do that very regularly, and the working title just keeps me focused on making it. And then I worry about what the real title's going to be because it'll tell me eventually what it's going to be. Or I might even brainstorm it with some other people, or I'm in the habit of asking Claire to come up with great ideas. And she often furnishes the titles of things for me, which is very powerful too.
Thanks, Claire. Oh, she's so lovely. Yeah, I love having that working title because it just kind of helps define it describes what it is more than anything. And I've actually not had a project where I'm like where I put some real constraints on how the work is made ever. So putting some constraints on how the work is made, it's like, okay, I can make a painting, but I can only use blues, or I'm going to go on a hike and I can only use a fixed lens, or I can only, I don't know what it would be in writing, but it's narrowing your kind of narrowing things. I don't know how you describe that, but anyway, and I think then your creativity expands when you have more narrow parameters that you're working with. It sometimes that can happen.
We need to do a whole episode on that. I've got a lot to say about how powerful that is, limiting choices. And the more you limit yourself creatively, the easier it is to be creative within the boundaries of these limitations. And I find that in a very, very, very powerful way of working. And I encourage people to really explore it and work with it. And I definitely do that over and over is set boundaries. And it, I get close to them and I push them and play with the boundaries as well. And I'm not talking about making rules that are stupid, that you
Right.
actually you're creating rules that are helpful for you, aren't you? You're creating a boundary, a nice safe space for you to work in. And just because you create a boundary doesn't mean you also have to stick to it. You're allowed to jump out of it as well. So as you're making the work, you get to refine those boundaries. And by doing so, it actually helps us focus, doesn't it?
I agree. And I also think, like, for me, the no tripod really helps define what this project is about. Like, it's like a fleeting moment, whereas the tripod really means I'm studying it, I'm there. I mean, I can put my camera on a tripod pretty quickly, but uh, I, I think they'll have a different kind of quality versus if I had, if I could put my camera on a tripod. And if I could put my camera on a tripod and really spend some time, making like small adjustments, but it also might help me refine that in with my just my hand holding, like my actual like being able to do that without the tripod. You do that a lot, I know. And I've been stuck on my tripod for a while, so I'm trying to get out of it, which is I feel like this will be helpful.
I just lugged my huge, heavy, I think it's a few kilos tripod to Tasmania, and it's like a big one. I can extend it up to 8 feet or something so that it goes well above my head and it's solid as a rock. And I love it to death. And for the 8-day trip in the Tarkine I did in Tasmania recently, I didn't get it out once. I carried it down to one waterfall, and I actually discovered that I could do handheld long exposures longer than I'd ever done before by using the one of the modes that I hadn't really explored before. And I was doing 4-second handheld exposures of this beautiful moving soft water and actually succeeding in it. And I almost came back home thinking, maybe I got to leave this bloody thing at home and start maybe. I think the next trip I'll just carry my small one, and then maybe after a while I might even be able to dump my tripod at all. But working at night, there's all these cases when you definitely do need to use it. But I've found myself much freer working without one, and having come from large format where it was impossible virtually to take a photo without a tripod, it's liberating. It's absolutely liberating.
It's interesting what new equipment or different equipment can do, like how it actually changes how we work. And the actual process of the creating that,
Mm.
and by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, 4 seconds handheld, try and be still for 4 seconds. Just
Oh, well,
clock yourself.
there's a bit of a trick to that. I'm actually
Okay.
using the high resolution mode, so it's actually composting 8 half-second photos together to get the 4 seconds. So I'm actually
Oh my
only
gosh.
hand holding half a second, and then the composting is actually making the frame a little bit smaller, and it allows for a tiny little bit of movement in there. And uh, I was just blown away, and I spent a lot of time playing with that process to see whether I could improve it. But knocking it back to quarter of a second and ending up with 2-second ones seemed to be a nice sweet spot for me. I use an Olympus, and so these computational things that these cameras can do is absolutely incredible and very exciting. But on my trip, Bree, I I treated another one of my cameras the same way that I've been treating my Olympus, and taking it out into the rain. And unfortunately, I destroyed my Panasonic camera, thinking that it was a bit more weatherproof than it really was. And it got a little bit too wet, and not even as wet as I would normally let my other camera get, but it stopped working. So I'll send it off to the repair person. But I think the
Fingers
camera's
crossed for you.
decided it's no longer mine.
Yeah, fingers crossed for you. Oh goodness. Well, it is interesting that, it's helpful to know our equipment, right? And maybe this is the universe's way of saying, make room for something different. I don't know.
It's definitely the universe saying, stop wasting your money buying all new cameras and just stick with what you've got. It doesn't really matter what you know and what you use. You still don't even know how to use the thing properly yet. I haven't read all of the manual. I don't even know how to use the autofocus part yet. I just still manually focus the thing. Yes, the universe says stop wasting your money chasing something better when you actually have something that does an incredibly good job and that you love. It's the camera I want to use when I go to my bag. So that's where you should be focusing, is using that rather than getting sideswiped by possibilities and really good marketing.
You know what's funny is I actually kind of thought that my that infrared camera that I got was going to be like that. Like I'm just kind of chasing it. Oh, it's just going to be kind of whatever and, just something extra. But I'm finding more and more that I pick it up a lot more. And it is becoming an integral part of my kit. Like I almost have to have it now. And so now I'm stuck carrying 2 cameras everywhere, which is fine. I'm not going to complain. It
It
really
might.
is fun.
It
What?
might have its heart set on replacing the other one.
No. No.
You
I'm
never
sorry.
know.
Well, I do love color, and so, I mean, the camera can do color, it does like a false color thing, and so I'm mostly putting it in black and white, and I'm shooting in black and white, but now I'm finding I honestly, you'll be happy to hear this. I'm doing about 50% of I'm doing half and half. It's like half color, half black and white, and I'm like, "Wait, Am I becoming a black and white photographer? I don't know. I have people messaging me going, "Oh, hey, let me ask you questions about an infrared camera." And I'm like, "Do I know the answers to this? I don't know. I just get it?" But it has been almost a year. So, you know, yeah, it's been so fun. So I think we have to try things. Sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. And, it's always a process of kind of fine tuning. But I also think like I felt I've been thinking a lot about like creative intuition. Like I did a little post on Instagram about listening to your heart versus your brain, because if I had listened to my brain about that infrared camera, I'm like, why am I spending money on that? But I felt so drawn, like it was like I was compelled to get this thing. I was like, how can I get my hands on one of these? And I knew I wasn't going to rest until I had one in my hands. And I don't feel like that about things that often. And so I've been working on listening to this more, this internal voice, and trying to separate out with what my brain thinks I should do, with what my heart thinks I should do. And a lot of times, what my heart thinks I should do is like some wacky thing, and I'm like, all right, I'm I'm really leaning into like, okay, let's try that. Okay, yeah, yeah, let's try that. You know, and so, off we go. Off we go to do that as long as, the time and the energy and all the things work out, okay, we'll go do that. So, and it feels good when you listen and you follow. Like I love that feeling. And so that's what the infrared camera did. That's what it's doing more for me. But yeah, have you had that? I mean, you've had many years of listening to this.
And it's the answer. Like, if you
Yeah.
have to ask, what's the big secret to creativity? Um, it's up there in the top 10. I haven't really thought about it too much into where it fits in that scale, but it's one of the biggest questions and the biggest answers is we need to be more in tune with our intuition. We need to be listening to our feelings. We need to trust it. We need to learn to understand that feelings are a method of communication that our inner selves has with our external self. There's a whole part of us that sort of, this iceberg of consciousness that we have. It's this tiny bit of our brain sticks out above the water, and there's this huge bit under, and it struggles to communicate with us. It communicates through dreams. It communicates primarily through feelings, through gut reaction, through a pain in your chest or um, something happening in your stomach. Anyway, so the more you can tune into your emotional responses and these feelings, that they're telling you things. And trying to work out what it's telling you is a lifelong quest. But the more you listen, the better your art gets. I'm very, very
Yeah.
clear on this. I am a strong, strong believer that that intuitive part of you knows more than the bit that is conscious. And that's what we battle, isn't it? We're always battling our consciousness saying in our, with voices in our minds and our thoughts, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, or we need to rationalize this, we need to have a reason behind that. But then underneath, it's our body says, no, 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 not that way, that way. It says, go over there. That way is much more creatively exciting for you. Follow it. And when you do connect with these, we're happier. Like this is when we get into our happy space, is when we are listening intuitively to these directions that comes from ourselves. Like it's all within us.
Agreed. Like, I'm stamping it, yes. We should put that in the, like, rules of art. No, just kidding. And I think that takes us actually kind of full circle to what I was talking about at the beginning, which is sometimes we don't have the opportunity to really hone in and listen to it if we're not quiet, if we're not taking the time to stop and be present and really enjoy a moment where we're still and we can listen. And I think about being in Joshua Tree. I'm at my campsite and I look one way and I look the other way and I'm like, all right, where are we going? And I looked one way and my gut said, nope. And I looked the other way and my gut said, yep. And so I said, great, let's go that way. I mean, I can't go wrong. I'm like, well, I'm looking around going, well, I can't go wrong, but my gut says go that way. So yeah, we'll go that way. And I think in the course of maybe an hour at most, and I know you've experienced this too, and an hour at most, I came away with at least 3 or 4 images I really like. And maybe that's because the subjects were there, but I really think it's because I'm quiet, I'm present, I'm tapping into what my intuition wants, and I'm doing that like slowing down, like that quote I read you from this book, which is I'm slowing down and I'm noticing. In fact, I went out there and I just stood around. I heard a coyote. The coyote, I actually got kind of worried because it sounded kind of close and I was all alone, like solo.
Mm.
Like, please don't come over here. I actually think they're scared of me, but please, no animals here. No carnivores anyway. Bunny rabbits, fine, saw those. But I think just stopping to kind of take it all in and breathe deep and smell things and just not move and notice is so helpful for me to do that, to be able to connect that way.
When you were talking about stopping the 360 project and starting this new one, or adding, into your
Mhm.
creative bag, it's the same thing, isn't it? We say metaphorically, listen to your art and the art will tell you, but by concentrating on the art, by listening and looking at it, the response is an emotional one.
Mhm.
It's really, that's just a metaphor for concentrating on it and listening to yourself, because the answer's within you. And people say the art will guide you, it will tell you where to go. That's because you're concentrating on the artwork, and then you're listening to yourself, and your emotions are then guiding you as to where to take it. And we've got to be really careful with some of these things. But I really believe that this emotional connection is where you need to spend your effort practicing, learning to trust it, learning to, oh, actually, that's what's going on right now. I need to be more intuitive about it, and I need to listen to those things. I've said this many a time on this podcast, but I'm more likely to cry in a movie today than I was when I was younger, and I really believe that my being an artist and practicing as an artist has taught me to be more emotional, to be more in tune with my own inner feelings. And it's made me more sensitive, although I think I was always pretty sensitive. But I've noticed this change over time because I'm focusing on it. I'm getting better at it. It's become my skill. It's becoming my superpower, is being able to listen to my inner feelings and thoughts.
That's awesome. Like I kind of used to be that too. Like I would ignore, and now I like want to feel all the things. And when I was thinking about that 365 project, it just kind of washed over me. And I just had this gut feeling like it is finished, it is over. And not from my head, like, I don't really want to do this anymore. It's taking so much time, da da da. It was like I was still, and it was like, it was that connection. Like, you are done with it. It is finished. Move
Mm,
on. Time to move on. And I can trust that. The thing I love about knowing that is I can trust that. I don't have to go backwards and think about it anymore. The decision is made, it's done. And I feel there's a lot of confidence in that too. Like when you have that connection with your intuition, you just know things and you don't have to question it. And you can just make decisions and keep going and move on. And that's partly how your work gets better, is that you're not second guessing yourself sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's it's that trust. You have more trust in yourself and your art and the process and where it's going, even though you may not even know where it's going, but you trust your intuition kind of will guide you along the way. And I just think that's a really beautiful thing.
It definitely does. I've been working on my Tarkine book, and that was one of the reasons I went on this trip. Was to add some more photographs on it, and also to take a lovely group of clients and tour around with them and show them somewhere so close to my heart. But in my book, I've been looking for someone to write, this so much information and a big story about the Tarkine. And I had a dream just this last week or two. And in my dream, I can see the words next to the photographs and read them. And there was this moment of realization that they were mine. And like every time I do a presentation and I'm showing photos of this place, I'm immediately starting to talk about the logging, the mining, how it's in danger, how it needs to be a World Heritage Area, and blah 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 blah. And like when I spoke to the Royal Photographic Society and launched their annual general meeting, I gave an environmental talk about this beautiful place, illustrated with my gorgeous photos, to try and increase the awareness for this beautiful place. And this dream just like hit me in the face. Like, I know the words because I've been saying them for my whole life, or, most of my adult life as an environmentalist. And then in the last few years, really focusing in on one location and going, I really want to put a bit of oomph behind saving this. And it's one of my muses and really inspires me. And a dream that I had woke me up to this fact that, stop looking for someone else to do this bit of work. You need to do it yourself. And it was so clear. And right, I know my starting point because I've already done a talk just by re-transcribing that and starting that off as the basis of the words. The words are there. And I needed a dream to show me that. And I've been banging my head on against the wall against that issue. Who could write this? And I've been naming people and asking them. And uh, yeah, I need to do it myself. And what's a dream? Well, that's me dealing with my everyday issues underneath, isn't it? Sorting them out, telling me in those certain terms that, hey, you need to be doing this yourself, Len. And that's intuition, isn't it?
Totally. I love that you went through this process though of like thinking of who you could ask, even asking people. Like it's almost like you had to go through the process of going down the list of who could do it. And then until your intuition was like, until your subconscious was like, it's you. Forget all these people. This is you. Right. And so I think that kind of shows like in our own creative path, we go down like little side roads that we think are meaningless. What was that over there? Why did I do that thing? And they're not, because it all informs us in our art in one way or another. It's just we've got to catch up to our brain has to catch up to our subconscious. We've totally talked about this before. And I think that having an open mind and kind of going, "Oh, well, okay, I did that. I wonder what I have to learn from that." And then, going on and moving and going forward rather than spinning around about how terrible it was or it was a failure or whatever, you know, um, like you could have thought, oh, I wasted so much time asking all these people when it was me all along. But I don't think that's the case. I think you had to go through all of that.
Yeah, definitely did. Definitely did. Well, Brie, I think that's a wonderful place to conclude our
I was
conversation
just gonna I
on
was just gonna
creativity
say the
today.
same thing. It's like we know.
That's right. We know.
There's an energy connection between I'm in California this week, between Tehachapi, California, and where you are in Australia. Hey, Lynn, I thought before we go, we could maybe take a minute to share like what we're working on or what we have coming up, just really quickly. So you're working on your book. What else do you have coming?
I've been working very, very hard at the Artists Club, which is my new online art school, and based around my last club, which was called Lens Club, and trying to find a better home for it, and one that is less egocentric around myself and my teaching, but more around the community members on there. we were able to launch that a few weeks ago, and that's really, really exciting. We're just slowly putting people in there at the moment and trying to figure out how it's going to work and how it does work. That's one really exciting thing. Tomorrow, Claire comes over and we're packing up and posting out another issue of Len's Journal, and that's a really, really exciting thing. And while we're doing that, we've already done the next issue actually. So Claire and I will be talking about how we're going to work on my next Tarkine book, the one that I was talking about today. And I'm also in the back of my mind working really, really hard at creating online courses for artists to do, cheap, short, quick courses on different aspects. So I'm getting my head around bringing that into the Artists Club and how that's going to look and how that's going to work. So, despite being sick for the last few weeks, I've spent a lot of mental and emotional time working out on what's coming next, and I'm really excited for the future. So, Bree, what's happening with you?
That's awesome. I'm going to post links to all of that stuff. What's happening with me? Ooh, so I have a couple of things. One is for any photographers, I'm actually starting a new podcast, which is fun because why have just one when I can have a second? So it's called Wild Women in Photography. It will already have been launched. There will be episodes for you. Even if you're not here's the thing, even if you're not a photographer, these are stories from women and not just women out in the wild. These are like the wild, interesting women, and they're all emotion based conversations. So they're just coming on and we're sharing some experiences and that's it. They're just experiences and stories, which I think are kind of the heart of our craft and the photography. Like, Len and I, you were just talking about how it's the emotions that we love and that we want to experience. And that's what I want to talk about. So that is right now it's August. So it's about to be released in September. And I'm super excited about that. It's just me with a guest. So, and that's kind of it. But on the side, I have a couple of things. One is I'm doing some photography, like photography escapes for women that are more experiences, but they are adventures. So I have one coming up in November that is it's kayaking in East Texas in these cypress swamps that have all this beautiful moss and the trees turn in the fall and it's just gorgeous. So I'm excited to take women along on my own, like basically my own photography adventures, the kind I like to go on where I'm really like in the nature experiencing it. And I kind of designed this so that it would be for women, well, any women who want to join, but women in particular who want to adventure, but they don't want to do it alone or they don't want to do it in a huge group. These are small group adventures. And I want to support women that way, hence also the new podcast. So there's that. And then on the side, I'm also working on this idea of sustainable creativity where it's not like we know that creativity is kind of full of these emotional ups and downs, but more to come on that. I may have already written. I'm going to do more writing on it, so you can go. I'll share my blog and some writings if they're available. When this is published. So more to come on that. This is my long-term work that I'm really excited about. So stay tuned. There we go.
How exciting. I'm so excited for you and all the women that you're going to be interviewing. And I can't wait to listen to those beautiful emotional stories. And I think it's such a wonderful thing that you're doing there. And running trips, Bree, welcome to my world. This is, I absolutely love running trips. And Bree and I, one day we'll be running trips together, I'm sure too. So
One day.
uh, come and join either of us at any time and uh, get to experience some incredible places and be supported as individual creative artists in what would we say it, a growth facilitating environment.
Yes.
Be supported.
100%.
Yeah, be supported.
1,000%. I love
That's what
that.
we're about, isn't it, Bree?
Yes. Yes. I love the discomfort of growth and, putting myself in new scenarios where I'm growing. And, honestly, 3 years ago, I never thought I'd be doing all the things I'm doing right now. So it's super fun. Well, I think it's time to say goodbye. We've talked at you long enough. So thanks for hanging in there. And we love you. So, all right, Len, I'm signing off. So bye, y'all.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us in our creative affair. If you love the passion we bring to this creative content, please support the podcast by sharing with a friend, subscribing, and leaving us a review. To find out more about Bree's work, including her gorgeous photography and mentoring in her Creative Confidence Group Coaching program, please visit her at creativemindscoach.com. If you'd like to learn more about creative photography, you can find me at lenmetcalf.com, where you can find links to my photography school, videos, and publications. I would so love you to sign up to my newsletter. Well, until next time, it's time to say goodbye.